Outdoors Delmarva covers everything outdoors,
including real hunting and fishing situations involving wildlife.
We do our best each week to bring you tasteful content,
but viewer discretion is advised.
Now enjoy the show.
Outdoors Delmarva presents Horn Point Oyster Hatchery, sponsored by the Dorchester County Office of Tourism.
Welcome to Outdoors Delmarva, the show that celebrates our communities, our cultures and traditions, and the places we call home. My name is Jason Lee.
And I'm Lauren Hitch.
Lauren, this is going to be a shell of a good episode this week.
Here they come.
Oh, now don't go getting all clammy on me. I'm not gonna muscle in any bad oyster puns on you.
Look, it's just that you're not very good at them.
I beg your pardon? I excel at them. Cue the music.
This is Outdoors Delmarva, presented by Gateway Subaru. Higher standards. And now, here are Jason Lee and Lauren Hitch.
You can live on Delmarva your entire life and still find something new.
Which is why we are taking you on a tour of Horn Point Laboratories' Oyster Hatchery, and we hope that when we're all done here, you'll learn something new too.
I have been here 27 years.
27 years.
27 years, pretty much right out of college. I did an internship, had no intentions of going into oysters, and it just kind of happened. So this is where all the reproduction starts. Adult oysters are kind of the unsung heroes of this entire process, because without them, we don't have the moms and dads, and we need those to produce the gametes, which are the eggs and sperm, which we then collect, fertilize, and then we rear those resulting larvae. And then we also have the table where we spawn them as well. This is typically called a mass spawn because they're all in the same water. So once they start going, we'll sex them, sort them into our tubs, and then do the same process, counting them, fertilizing them, and growing. We know the sex by how they release their gametes into the water columns. Males release sperm from the side, long streams, and females actually open up and they clap. And when they clap, they spit their eggs into the water column. But complicating that is that they can switch sex. They are known as sequential hermaphrodites, which means they typically start as a male their first year of life. As they get bigger and they have more energy, they typically switch to become a female, but they can switch back to being a male. They can switch back to being a female. It all depends on what the population around them is doing. This is pretty much our end product for spat on shell for restoration purposes or bottom culture for the industry leases. So larvae attached to the shells. This is what they look like at 48 hours, 1 week, 1 to 2 months, a year, 2 years, and 6 years. And you can see as they get bigger and older, the habitat starts moving in. So it's kind of like the field of dreams. You build it, they will come. Barnacles and mussels and all of that start colonizing the oysters just growing, and that's what starts your habitat. Our habitat, this is what we want out there. The nooks and crannies, the hard bottom substrate, and that creates a better bay. People want to fish on top of an oyster reef because you have your little fish, and then the bigger fish come in search of those little fish, and it just is a wonderful place to be.
We've only just begun to crack open this shell with more pearls of knowledge coming as our tour of Horn Point Oyster Hatchery continues.
Outdoors Delmarva, presented by Gateway Subaru, returns right after these messages.
You're watching Outdoors Delmarva, presented by Gateway Subaru. Higher standards.
We continue our tour of Horn Point Oyster Hatchery in Cambridge as we take a closer look at the science behind oyster production.
But don't worry, there isn't a test after this class.
So in January, when we start the water up for the hatchery, the water is obviously very cold in the bay. But when we bring them in here, we have systems where I can warm up the water and make it springtime ahead of springtime. And if all goes well, we can start spawning in March. On the flip side, right now, the bay is warm. Oysters are spawning. But we've chilled this water and kept it at colder springtime temperatures, and that allows us to maintain them longer into the year. So again, if all goes well, we'll be spawning through September. And then when we're done, we'll shut down the system. We lose water usually November 1, shut the hatchery down, fix everything we break, and then we start right back up in January again. We are a flow-through hatchery, which means water comes in. We're utilizing what's naturally growing in the top tank river, and then water goes out. So we are not feeding them, but Mother Nature is. And we're just tempering it, either hot water or cold water, to maintain our temperatures. They're eating everything that's in there, and that's what they're using as fuel to make the babies. We do grow algae, but we're using that to feed the babies. The adults, they're okay. They're on their own. We focus our food efforts on feeding the larvae we produce. It's a very involved, complex process, and it's not just one entity. For the restoration, we are a big group of 5 different partners involved in this. So it's University of Maryland, Oyster Recovery Partnership, Maryland Department of Natural Resources, NOAA, and Army Corps of Engineers. And all 5 of us are working cooperatively together to get the restoration project overboard in the right spots, on the right bottom, and monitoring them so that they have the most impact. This is the MLT room, otherwise known as mass larvae tank room. And all of the PVC you see is either fill lines or feeding lines. So we have an automated feeding system where it pumps the algae from our greenhouse into the larvae tanks. So larvae swim for the first 2 weeks of their life. Everybody thinks oysters can't move, but that's not true. They do swim for the first 2 to 3 weeks of their life, and then they attach or strike to something, then they can't move. So we just need to grow them up to that point where they're ready to attach, and then we can get them wherever we need to put them. So right there we have a bundle of 4.5 million. So
4.5 million?
4.5 million right there. So what we do is we put them in a coffee filter. We wrap it in a damp paper towel. And as long as they stay damp and cold, they can survive in a refrigerator for up to 5 days. They have 2 shells, they close up. They chill out, literally. And that's what they look like. They look like little coffee grains, kind of, or sand. And they're in this nice, deep, dark brown color. These are mature, heavy veliger oyster larvae that are ready to attach to a substrate. I do not want them attaching in my big swimming tanks, swimming only. These I want to take down to the pier and attach them to shell so we can create the spout on shell for the restoration.
We still have much more to show you from Horn Point Oyster Hatchery.
But up next, we learn a thing or two about the wonders of the Chesapeake that made oyster harvesting such a cultural phenomenon here on Delmarva through the eyes of Scorchy Taws.
Outdoors Delmarva, we'll be right back.
You're watching Outdoors Delmarva, presented by Gateway Subaru. Higher standards.
They say the right tool for the job provides the greatest success.
And when it comes to oyster harvesting, no tool has been more invaluable than the skipjack.
Honoring the life and legacy of Scorchy Taws, thanks to Shorts Marine in Long Neck, Delaware. Shorts Marine, everything but the water.
Tennyson once wrote, old age has its honor and its toil. Honor has come to each senior citizens of the Somerset County Skipjack Fleet by being named to the National Register of Historic Places. Having been bestowed with an honor reserved for the aged does not mean, however, that these antiquated Goliaths of the Chesapeake are ready for the old rocking chair. They are alive and well, and we found them on summer vacation in various stages of repose, none of which presented them in the majestic light of center stage upon which they performed during the months of the Oyster. The Ida May, born at Urbana, Virginia, is the matriarch of the historic fleet. We found her and 74-year-old Thomas Clyde built in nearby Oreo, whiling away the dog days of summer, less than a shell's throw away from the Deal Island Bridge. Just around the corner, Seagull, conceived in Crisfield, and the youngster of the honored at 61, joined with Susan May, a sprightly lass of 84, at their dockside summer retreat, facing the breakwater that serves as their wintry pathway to home. Then there's Clarence Crockett at rest in chance, and harboring a spruced-up look that belies his 77 years. Lying well out of the channel at Winona, we found 81-year-old Fanny L. Doherty snoozing in the summer sun. Nearby, Howard was nestled among oyster shells that at one time could very well have burdened his 76-year-old decks. And the F.C. Lewis, at age 78, seemed content in a marshy haven far from the waters of the storied Chesapeake. Ida May, Thomas Clyde, Seagull, and Susan May. Clarence Crockett, Fanny L. Doherty, Howard, and F.C. Lewis. Historical senior citizens of the Chesapeake and legends in their own time. Scorchy Taws won in our Delmarva land for WBOC News.
Remembering Scorchy Taws is sponsored by Shorts Marine. Online at shortsmarine.com.
Did you know that skipjack boats have been in the Chesapeake Bay oyster business for more than 150 years?
Did you know that at one point there were approximately 2,000 wind-powered skipjack boats in service, whereas today the number of skipjacks still in fishing operation is less than 20?
And did you know that the skipjack was made the official boat of Maryland in 1985 and has been recognized as a national treasure in danger of extinction?
Now you do.
Did You Know is sponsored by North Bay Marina. Outdoors Delmarva will be right back. You're watching Outdoors Delmarva presented by Gateway Subaru. Higher standards.
We continue our tour of Horn Point Oyster Hatchery in Cambridge.
And as Stephanie Alexander shows us, this stage of the spat journey is just the beginning.
So this is where all the spat on shell is produced. So we have a lot of cages ready to go. These have nothing on them but plain shell. And again, these shells are clean, they're aged, washed, put into a container, and then we use them in our big tanks. Empty tanks. And now we have tanks that we're getting ready to set. So, these were the larvae that they bundled earlier today. So again, we put them in that coffee filter and kept them damp and cold. Now they're down here. Maya just filled this bucket up with tank water. And all I'm gonna do is take this bundle and I'm gonna rinse it in here. So what we're doing, because they've been in the fridge for up to 5 days, they're cold. So by putting them in this bucket with the tank water, they're gonna warm up. And you can kind of see them, well, just because I rinsed them. And what I want them to start doing is swimming again. Once they start swimming, then we're gonna give it a nice little stir, without crushing them, of course. And then we're gonna introduce it into this tank. And we do that by standing on top, carefully, of course, with a buddy, safety first, so we always have 2 people down here. So gave it a good little stir, and now she's just gonna distribute the larvae throughout the entire tank. And remember, they're gonna be swimming, right? So they're not attaching immediately. So by putting them throughout this tank, She's then going to rinse down the surface, because we don't want them just going to one shell and all attaching there. We want them to swim around and be free. So she is going to rinse and rinse and rinse until you don't think you could rinse anymore. And then we're going to give them 48 hours. And on Saturday, I will collect a random sample of 10 shells. And then I will count those 10 shells using a microscope and then get an average per shell and then extrapolate that, because I know there is approximately 100,000 shells in this tank. And then I have a number. If I like the number, I'm going to turn water on, let Mother Nature feed them. If I don't like the number, I can put more in there. But I can't control how they attach, so we usually start pretty conservatively. Not next week, but the week after, we'll schedule a deployment, and that's when ORP will use their boom truck. They drain the tank, lift these out, put them on a forklift, ferry them over to the wooden pier, and then we have the forklift at the bottom of the end of the pier. They dump it into the hopper. We collect samples, and then we'll count them back in the hatchery, and then the conveyor belt loads the boat. And then once the boat's loaded, we'll go to our planting site, which is typically a sanctuary, but we also do some harvest bars, and we also have other contractual projects like building a reef up in the Severn River or what have you. 2023, we were flipping 50 tanks a week, and we did it for about 8 to 10 weeks straight. It was crazy. This year, not so crazy, but we're still trying to get 20 some of them overboard on a weekly basis.
We'd like to thank Stephanie and her amazing team at the hatchery for giving us such an educational experience. I know that I will never look at another oyster the same way.
If you'd like to learn more or get a tour for yourself, be sure to check out Horn Point Laboratory on Facebook, and be sure to check out their upcoming open house in October.
Outdoors Delmarva, presented by Gateway Subaru, returns right after these messages.
You're watching Outdoors Delmarva, presented by Gateway Subaru. Higher standards. And now, here are Jason Lee and Lauren Hitch.
It's time to flip through the photo album and take a look at your latest pictures.
Thanks to our friends at North Bay Marina.
Jacob Lagana of Wingate rescued this turtle from a crabbing trot line in the waters of Fishing Bay in Dorchester County. Nice work, Jacob.
Steve Long of Bishopville got a couple of photos of these two young ones playing in a nearby field. Looks like human kids aren't the only ones enjoying summer vacation.
Tammy Massey of Seaford managed to capture this good-looking buck in an action shot. Those antlers sure are fuzzy.
Lisa Levis of Milford sent us this awesome picture of a rainbow coming down out of the clouds.
Phil Quetchenbach of Selbyville had a pretty good sunset photo, and his dog Groot couldn't agree more.
And Jeff Mitchell of Salisbury sent us this gorgeous photo, proving that nothing makes a house prettier than a Delmarva sunset.
Outdoors Delmarva viewer pictures are sponsored by North Bay Marina.
That's going to do it for us this week. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Keep sending in those wonderful viewer photos, and you can do that by going to outdoorsdelmarva.com and clicking the banner at the top of the page, or scan the QR code in the bottom corner of your screen.
And if you have sent in photos and you haven't seen them on the show yet, don't worry, we are getting to them, and we will let you know when they will be included. We hope to see you right back here again next week. But until then, my name is Jason Lee.
And I'm Lauren Hitch, and we hope to see you
Outdoors Delmarva.
Outdoors Delmarva, a Draper Media production, is presented by Gateway Subaru. Higher standards. Sponsored by Shorts Marine and Bell Creek Equipment.